So, when you think about Stripe, what comes to mind? Probably just another massive tech company, right? Well, today, we're going to look at it a little differently. We're going to see Stripe as something way more fundamental, literally the financial backbone of the entire internet. And understanding how they pulled this off, well, it's like getting the blueprint for how our modern digital world is actually built. You know, it all really boils down to this one simple but kind of profound question. Back in the day, sending an email or a photo across the world became basically instant, effortless. But trying to get paid online, whoa, that was a whole different ballgame. It was clunky, it was complicated, and honestly, a total nightmare for anyone trying to start a business. This was the exact problem that Stripe's founders were obsessed with solving.
All right, so let's actually dig into what that problem looked like. Before Stripe came along, the world of online payments wasn't just messy. It was a tangled web that was actively holding back new ideas.
I mean, just try to picture the headache founders were dealing with. You weren't just picking one service. No, you were trying to piece together this fragile Frankenstein's monster of a system. You needed different gateways for different credit cards. You had to manually screen for fraud. You needed totally separate software just for subscriptions and taxes. And then you had to navigate this maze of financial rules. It was an absolute mess.
And this right here, this just nails the core issue. For those early internet entrepreneurs, payments weren't a tool to help them grow. Nope, they were just friction, a constant roadblock that slowed down good ideas and probably stopped thousands of small businesses before they even got off the ground. The system was just fundamentally broken.
But, you know, out of all that frustration came something, well, a completely new way of looking at the problem. The founders of Stripe didn't just want to build a slightly better payment system. They had a much more radical idea.
This was the question that changed everything. What if you could treat money not like some rigid, old-school banking product, but more like code? Something you could program, something flexible, something a developer could access with just a few simple lines of code. What if handling all your company's finances could be as easy as, say, building a web page?
And that question led them to basically create an entirely new category, financial infrastructure as a service. What this really means is that Stripe wasn't just a tool for processing payments anymore. It was offering this one unified platform that any developer could just plug into to handle their entire financial operation.
And this comparison just lays it all out, doesn't it? The old model was a fragmented mess that felt like a clunky banking product. Stripe's model, on the other hand, is totally unified and built around programmable APIs. It's modular, it's scalable, and it turned a huge point of friction into a powerful, flexible tool for builders.
But here's where the real genius comes in. They didn't just stop at payments. Mastering that was just step one. Their true brilliance was in how they strategically built layer after layer on top of that foundation, transforming themselves from a simple tool into an absolutely essential platform.
And they followed this super clear four-step playbook. First, they perfected the core of payments. Once that was done, they expanded into tools to help businesses actually manage their money. Then they moved on to automating all the painful back-office finance stuff. And finally, they built tools to empower founders from the very beginning.
So let's break down that first step. Stripe didn't just process payments, they optimized the heck out of them. They made it incredibly simple to accept money from all over the world, in over 135 different currencies, whether you were online or in a physical store. And behind the curtain, their machine learning was constantly working to slash fraud and boost the number of successful transactions, which for any business is pure gold.
And this right here is the absolute key to their entire strategy. By solving that first, most painful problem, just getting paid, Stripe gets embedded deep inside a company's operations. And from that position, they can see all the other financial headaches a business is dealing with, and they can start offering solutions one by one. And here you can see what that expansion actually looks like. They jumped into managing money for really complex businesses like marketplaces. They made it easy to send payouts to partners all over the world. They even started letting companies issue their own corporate cards and offered access to capital for growing businesses. They went from just moving money to helping companies manage it. Okay, so after payments and money management, Stripe moves into the final frontier, the financial back office. You know, this is all the stuff that nobody, and I mean nobody, wants to do. But you have to. We're talking subscriptions, invoicing, taxes, reporting. It's tedious, it's complex, and it's a huge drain on your time and energy. And of course, Stripe built products to automate the whole shebang. Stripe Billing handles all your recurring revenue and invoicing. Stripe Tax takes care of the nightmare of global sales tax compliance, and Stripe Sigma gives you these incredibly powerful, unified financial reports. By solving these deep, nagging problems, Stripe goes from being a useful tool to becoming the central nervous system of a company's finances.
Now, when you have that kind of deep integration, it creates something really powerful, a competitive moat that is just almost impossible for anyone else to cross. So let's break down what makes their position so incredibly strong.
You've got to understand, Stripe's big advantage was never, ever about being the cheapest option. It was built on 4 key pillars. APIs that were so clean and easy to use that developers actually loved them. A massive global scale, rock-solid reliability, and most importantly, that deep, sticky integration into a company's core system.
And this number, wow. This just says it all. 99.999% uptime. It's what people in tech call 5 nines, and it's basically as close to perfect as you can get. When you are the financial backbone for millions of businesses, you simply cannot go down, ever. And that level of reliability is something very, very few companies can ever achieve.
So at the end of the day, that's the moat. Once a business builds its entire financial world, its subscriptions, its invoicing, its tax logic, on top of Stripe's APIs, ripping it out is not just hard. It's a massive, expensive, and incredibly risky project. They've made themselves indispensable.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. When you put all these pieces together, you really start to see the bigger picture of what Stripe has managed to build. And this quote just nails it, I think. Just like a physical city needs roads and a power grid to function, the digital economy needs its own essential infrastructure. It needs reliable, scalable, global payment rails to let commerce actually flow.
And that is precisely the role that Stripe filled. They're not the flashy app on your home screen that everybody talks about. They are the essential, invisible infrastructure layer working tirelessly in the background. They're the plumbing of the internet economy, and they just work quietly, reliably, and all over the world.
And that leaves us with one last really fascinating thought. We've seen the foundation that Stripe has built. But now that money and commerce are becoming as programmable as code itself, the real question is, what's next? What new kinds of economies, things we can't even imagine today, are going to be built on top of this powerful financial backbone?